Good morning. My name is Karen Goss, and you're joining me from my kitchen since today is the first day of my summer vacation. So luckily my husband took the kids out, so it should be nice and quiet at my house. Welcome to my presentation on digital privacy and our students. I'm looking forward to lots of interaction, and please feel free to jump in anytime if you have any other ideas or things you know about. So I'm going to kind of go over the laws and how the laws work for our student privacy and our kids, and then also what are some of the new legislation that's being looked at in Congress as we look forward to seeing how we make sure we strike that balance so our students get the best of technology, but at the same time we protect their privacy. So I'm going to get started with my presentation. And this presentation today is brought to you by TCAL, and they're a great leader in technology education for administrators in California. And also some of our other sponsors today, such as Q and ISTE and AXA. So we thank them for their leadership and for setting this up for us. So really we want to look at how do we strike that balance? How can we make sure we are getting the amazing uses of technology for our students, but at the same time, who are we sharing this information with, and who are we trusting with all of this metadata? And
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we're not seeing the next slides. It's still on the TCAL slide for us.
Oh no. How about that?
Not yet.
All right, let me stop sharing and try it again. All right, do you see data privacy?
No, still TCAL.
Oh no, come on.
You want to share your presentation with me?
Yes.
And then I will see if I can drive the slides.
Yes, let me.
Okay, so it's hargadon@gmail.com. HARGADON. HARGADON.
B as in boy?
D as in David.
Okay, at Gmail. Okay, I'll send it right now. That's so weird.
And you can start talking, and I'll see if I can catch us up.
All right, let me multitask at the same time while I get into my email and send the link over. All right. So really oh, I can hear myself talk. All right, I just sent the slides over. Let me know if you got it.
Did you send by email, or did you share within the program?
I shared.
Okay, give me a second.
So if anyone has any questions or anything to start, we can do those while we're waiting to get my slides up, or anything you really are concerned about as far as data privacy. I'll be happy to start that.
I have the slides, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share them, which means I won't be able to see the Q&A.
Okay.
But you should be able to, and then you just tell me
when to go forward.
Forward slide, Steve.
All right. Some teamwork here.
And hang on, it's still loading, but I'll get us to your title page.
Thank you.
And you have a way of seeing your slides so you'll know where you are?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So they should be seeing the slides now.
All right. So I just see the like small version of it. But that'll work. All right. So we'll get started now. I'm going to turn off my camera so I don't watch myself talk. So really, we really want to look at how can we strike that balance, because in the end, there are so many amazing, amazing websites and online systems that have so many benefits, but we really just have to make sure we're weighing those costs. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So go ahead and next slide. It's still on my title one.
Oh, Google, I'm having the same problem you are, but hang on.
Well, at least it wasn't just me. Sometimes that makes you feel a little better.
Okay.
My favorite part of technology is when it works, and then when it doesn't, it drives you crazy.
So it should be up now. Tell me if you're seeing the challenge slide.
Just back it up about one more slide. One more slide.
Okay, we're there.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right. I can hear my. Is there a way you can mute? All right. So that sounds better. All right. So really, we live in a world where people overshare everything. We're tired. You know, you guys, I'm sure, live in a world with Twitter and Facebook and everyone telling you everything in the entire world. But how do we make sure, and as adults, we have the ability to forward think on that, and we can decide what we want to share. But some of our students, they don't have that same forward thinking skills because they're just not of the age where they can see the long-term ramifications. And so we've all heard the stories of Target and Home Depot with their security breaches, and these are huge Fortune 500 companies, and they're getting their security breached. So how can we as schools make sure that we are taking care of our students who we have a moral and a legal obligation to ensure their privacy? So go ahead and next slide. Google just wants to not play nice today. All right, there it is. All right, so Kathleen Stiles is the Chief Privacy Officer for the U.S. Department of Ed, and so they've started to work on this issue more and more. And so she did a presentation last year where she really outlined what the Department of Ed's responsibilities are in student privacy. So really the biggest one is FERPA, really making sure we meet all those guidelines. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then there's the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendments, which is even more about kids and underage minors. And then the rising awareness of privacy. People are talking about it. It's a topic of conversation that comes up often. And so now it's more in the front of people's minds. And then how does the Department of Ed really provide that assistance to all the schools across all the states to promote those best practices? Next slide. Can you turn it to the next one? I know it's being super slow. It's still stuck on slide 8 for me. All right, so I'm just going to keep going even though my slides are not switching. It looks like he dropped, but I will keep going. So FERPA is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, and it's that federal law that protects the privacy of students' educational records, and it applies to all schools that receive funds from the Department of Education. So all of us have a legal obligation to protect FERPA. And I have a lovely, awesome video that shows a cute way to remember FERPA, but it's not playing right now, so we might come back to that in a little bit. So along with FERPA, we also have the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment. And so this applies to programs that receive funding from the U.S. Department of Ed. And this is intended to protect the rights of parents in 2 ways. So it seeks to ensure that schools and contractors make instructional materials available by the parent for the parents to look at if any of these materials will be used in connection with ed-funded surveys. So if parents want to see their children's records, they have a right to inspect those. And it also makes sure that schools and contractors obtain parent consent before students are required to participate in any ed-funded survey, analysis, or evaluation. So not only can parents have a right to access the information, they also have the right to opt-in consent. And so along with these 2 federal rights, we have the COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act of 1999.
No, it's only.
Oh, looks like we might be getting our slides back. Any luck? No, maybe not.
Okay, I'm back.
Yay!
Google completely kicked me out.
Of course it did.
Yes, of course it did. And
because last night it was working perfectly.
I know. Tell me what slide you need to be on.
If I could go to 7.
Okay.
It's the FERPA slide with the little hand.
Okay. You just keep talking and I'll get you there.
Okay, and that one's actually a video, so we'll see if that even works today. I was trying to be super techy, but since my slides won't even work, I don't know if that's gonna work. So while we're waiting for that to load, the other big one that we have to worry about is the Children's Online Privacy Act of 1999. So it imposes requirements of operators of websites that are directed for kids under 13 to know that they're collecting data of kids under 13. And there's different rules that follow when kids are under the age of 13. So 13 is really that magic number of when that privacy protection kicks in. And so with these 3 big laws, we have to take those into consideration when we how do we, as districts and schools, protect adhere to the challenge of protecting our students' privacy. So, sorry, I'm just seeing if this is going to work for a second before I go on to the next aspect of my thing, but I don't know if it's going to. So those of you who are there, I apologize for all the technical problems. Of course, Google worked just fine yesterday, and today has decided to not play nice with my Google Slides. So I'm trying to do it without a presentation. So I'll keep going, and hopefully some of the slides pop up momentarily, but I appreciate your patience. So as we're in districts and schools, we really need to make sure we're keeping our kids' privacy part of our policies. And so according to the, oh, it looks like something's presenting. Oh, all right. Let's see. I see slide 8. All right, one more. Let's see if it will work. All right, let's take a giant leap of faith and see if this video is going to work. So if the video does work, I will say it starts off and it speaks very fast. But of course, now there's no sound. Can you maybe try and unmute on your end?
That legal language.
Oh, all right, I hear it. Can we just back it up a little bit?
Data about us is everywhere. It's collected when we shop, take a vacation, look at a web page, or send an email. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, is a federal law which applies to educational institutions and agencies, such as schools, school districts, colleges, and universities, to which funds have been available under any program administered by the Secretary of Education. The purpose of FERPA is to protect the privacy of parents and students with regard to education records under Section 444 of the General Education Provisions Act as amended. Wow, it's easy to get confused with all the legal language. Let's try this again in plain English. The truth is, data about us is everywhere. It's collected when we shop, take a vacation, look at a web page, or send an email. You see, FERPA is a federal law that applies to most schools, colleges, and universities. It's meant to protect all that identifiable information about students in records that are kept by schools, and it provides the right for you to access that information, to seek to correct it, and generally to consent to its disclosure. Let's take a closer look at what that means. Today is Patrick's first day of kindergarten. As Patrick moves through the education system, his schools accumulate data, such as his grades, learning disabilities, or special needs information, and disciplinary information. As Patrick takes tests to see how he's progressing, his scores are protected by FERPA. FERPA requires schools and state and local educational agencies to keep the information that came from Patrick's records private and get his parents' written consent before sharing it with anyone else. There are some exceptions, but the general rule is Patrick's records are confidential. Students don't attend school anonymously, so schools routinely share some basic information about students, called directory information. If a school is going to share directory information, it must notify parents and students who are 18 or over, or who attend post-secondary institutions. For example, Patrick's school yearbook contains his name, grade level, and photograph. That's okay because his school designated these items as directory information and published its policy on its website, and Patrick's parents haven't opted out. FERPA also requires schools provide Patrick's parents the ability to review his records to make sure they are accurate. Patrick's applying to college. He and his parents review his high school transcript and discover the school has gotten Patrick confused with another student who has lower grades. This isn't good. FERPA not only gives his parents the right to see the records, but also to request that the school correct mistakes. If Patrick's parents and the school disagree on the accuracy of the info, FERPA gives Patrick's parents the right to request a hearing. Colleges and universities are also required to protect student information under FERPA, but the rules change a bit. Meet Lisa, a high school graduate who is headed off to college. Hooray! While Lisa was in elementary, middle, and high school and under the age of 18, FERPA allowed her parents access to her education records. Now, Lisa is entering college, and her FERPA rights transfer from her parents to her. Her parents wonder, but wait a minute, I'm paying the bills here, and now I can't see how she's doing academically? Since Lisa's parents claim her as a dependent on their federal tax return, her parents can still see her education records if Lisa's college chooses to release them. FERPA doesn't require schools to release records, it only allows this. You may be wondering, how do I find out more about how FERPA affects me or my child? To start, look for your school or school district's FERPA policy on its website, or ask your principal or school administrative staff about your rights under FERPA. Visit the Department of Education's Family Policy Compliance Office website for answers to frequently asked questions on privacy, training, and guidance for parents and students on FERPA rights and protections.
All right. So this is a great background on just what is shareable, what's not shareable. And then really, as we move forward, we collect way more than just scores now. We collect the everyday things, like when we use AR for you're on, Class Dojo, all those different things can be part of the child's digital footprint. And so as we move to the next slide, we can really see how there's a lot more that we have to think about than we did 10, 15 years ago. And so you can go to the next one from there. I talked about that one already. You can go forward to the screen with the computer. There we go. All right. So how are we meeting the challenge of this privacy? So go ahead and go to the next slide. All right. So with the rise in cloud computing, we really have to look into this. So now that 95% of districts rely on cloud computing in some form or manner throughout the school day, we really have to look at it. So it's more than even just the online tools like ClassDojo or Gmail. It even includes like cafeteria payments, the transportation, busing. And so with the cloud, a lot of our parents just aren't aware of how that works. It's not very transparent. And only 25% of districts inform their parents that they use cloud services. And 20% of districts currently have no policies governing the use of these online services. So this is really where we need to take the reins and get on that one. So next slide. And with the online cloud storage, fewer than 5% of the agreements specify the purpose for the disclosure of student information. And an overwhelming majority of cloud services do not even address the parent notification part, which we do know is a part of FERPA. And schools, district cloud service agreements generally do not provide for data security, even allow vendors to retain student information for the long term more and more. So there is no, after so many years, the data goes away. It's just a continuous thing. And so different legislators have taken up this action and there are actually 3 bills being proposed right now. So next slide. So there's 3 bills that are in the pipeline right now. So there's the VITR bill, the Student Privacy Protection Act. There is the Messer and Polis bill, the Student Digital Privacy and Parental Rights Act of 2015. And then the last one, this Protecting Student Privacy Act, Markey and Hatch. And so you can see from the graphic of how much, where the balance they're striking is. So the first one obviously is a big data protection. It's a student privacy. It's really heavy on that side, and it's really not favoring the educational technology side, but really we really have to look at both sides. And so then the other one, the second bill, is much more leaned in the favor of ed tech companies. And then the last one is a little more in the middle. So it has that balance. So those 3 are right now currently being looked at in Congress. So next slide. And so when is this going to happen? Are we going to have any legislation that comes out this year that really deals and updates the protection guidelines? So many of the laws we're looking at are from the 90s, where there was a completely different world as far as educational technology. So Whiteboard Advisors, which is a Washington, D.C. insider group, was asked, what do they think? Do they think that any of this legislation is going to really happen in the next 18 months? And about half, 54%, believe that some sort of legislation is going to be enacted. And you can see how far down the line most people think that's going to happen. And then 1/3 of people believe that it won't even happen until the next presidential election. So go ahead and go to the next slide. And then they asked these same insiders, which one of these 3 bills do you think is going to be the one that goes through? And so 42% think that none of these current proposals in their current form are going to make it through. And you can see that of all the 3 bills, the one that the insiders feel has the most ability to probably go through would be the Hatch-Markey bill at 32%, with the VITR bill being the least likely. So you can kind of see where people fall on that one. Go ahead and go to the next slide. One of the big issues I know that I hear a lot about, I hear my teachers talking about it, I hear even my parents talking about it, is really the student data mining. So it's a big buzzword. It's something that people are concerned about. And especially with the increase of students having their own email through schools. And so in 2013, Massachusetts became the first state to introduce legislation that would ban companies that provided cloud computing services from processing student data for commercial purposes. So they can't use it for monetary gain, where there's not ads and things like that, because they believe that students don't have the ability to filter out ads the same way that adults do, and that they are having an unfair use of our students with their data mining. So go ahead to the next one. And this goes to the thing that's saying that the American Academy of Pediatrics say that young people are cognitively and psychologically defenseless against advertising, which if any of you watch, have your kids watch Saturday morning cartoons, my kids want everything that you could buy online, and they want me to call the number, and they want the zippy sack and every new thing that's going out there right now, because they get so that they cannot see the ramifications of that. So therefore, would it be acceptable if a teacher was paid to review student classwork, noted student preferences, and then return graded assignments with offers for discounted merchandise based on the student's homework or class assignment? So we all would agree that wouldn't be okay if the teacher said, oh, you really like Subway? You can have a percentage off because you think Subway is better than XYZ. So we really have to make sure things that we would find completely wrong if it was happening face to face, are we protecting that same thing online? So go ahead and go to the next slide. And I know my time is wrapping up here quickly. So Google has been under fire for data mining student emails and saying that they scan and index the emails of app users. And Houston independent schools declined Google Apps for their one-to-one computing devices. And Chromebooks are currently used as of last year, and I'm sure this number is much higher now, 22% of school districts in the U.S. Go ahead. Next slide. So in response to this, Google and other companies have been working on the student privacy pledge. And so they have said, these are the things we're going to put into place to safeguard our students' personal information. So they're not going to sell the information. They're not going to behaviorally target advertising. They're only going to use the data for ed purposes, and they're going to have strict limits on the data retention. The parents have access to it and correct their information, and they're going to be much more transparent. So if you could click on that green link at the bottom that says who signed this, you can see all the companies. I think there's 131 currently who have signed this pledge to say that they are not going to share it, and they are going to really be on the leading edge of making sure that privacy is protected. And so it's coming up shortly. So here's just, you can see it's many of the companies we use. If you could just kind of roll through it, you know, so Aries, Apple has, Google has signed the pledge, Brain Pop, some of Blackbaud, which is a big one, the Canvas, some of the Class Dojo, I know that's a big one, the code.org. And so you can kind of just see a bunch of, so I think it's it's currently 151 companies have signed this pledge to say that they are not going to advertise, they're not going to share, they're going to make parents aware. So you can see that a lot of companies are stepping up and doing things about this. And a lot of these companies are the companies we use all the time, every day in the day-to-day classroom experience. So I was happy to see that that is really coming up. So, you know, I can see all the big software we currently use in our school, every single one of them was listed on here. So AR, Renaissance Learning is on there. So that the companies are making a concerted effort to make sure that this is happening. So you can go back to my slides. Thank you. It's weird to give a presentation and not control it, but I really appreciate you doing it for me, since Google was not being my friend this morning. And so they are the federal, you can go forward. I think I added another slide in there. So there is guidelines to help school districts work on how do we make sure that we are following all the FERPA laws, how are we protecting ourselves so we are informing our parents, how are we getting consent. And so the education department has released a really great toolkit to help schools really take the lead on making sure that their cloud computing services are following FERPA and doing the best for our students. You can go ahead, one more. Smile. And so there's a whole toolkit that's on the COSN website that was released in March of 2015 that really goes through step by step how as schools and school districts we can have all of our policies in place to make sure we're following all those guidelines. And I will tweet these links out after the presentation as well, so you can follow me on Twitter. It's at the Mrs. Goss. Actually, if you flip to the next page, you'll see my Twitter handle. And I will be tweeting out these links so you can have a copy of those as well. I really appreciate all of you sticking through the choppy presentation since we were having technical difficulties. And, you know, my brain is on first day of summer mode, so that didn't help as well. But I really appreciate it. If you have questions, I'll hang out here for a little bit longer. My kids are back, but they're upstairs, so they should be pretty quiet for right now. But I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate all your technical help this morning, and have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of the leadership conference.
And I actually have to turn the broadcast off because I have to go to the next session.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Who knows what's going on in the Googleplex today?
It's just being a brat.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.